So the post on Insta that sparked so many questions, it required just a short YouTube explanation, was another one on application of foot wiping. So yes, foot wiping to desensitize overly sensitive feet that really aren't free to be feet because they almost want to shy away from the ground, but also foot wiping to keep information going through the soles of the feet when there's either only partial weight bearing or no weight bearing at all because of injury. And I was applying that knowledge to the elderly with the story of grandma who had swollen ankles because she doesn't move enough. And because of the swollen ankles and lack of movement, there wasn't information coming in through the soles of the feet. And just with seated foot wiping, she actually ended up feeling more grounded, more stable, more balanced. So then there were a few questions about would it work for? And the list was peripheral neuropathy, sore knees, a calcaneus stress fracture, foot pain, plantar fasciitis several times, ankle sprains, which was the example I was offering, Morton's neuroma, and Parkinson's. And instead of answering all of those individually with the same answer, it made sense to put something out there that was more permanent, which may offer a bit more insight so that you can help yourself. There isn't a yes or no. There can't be a yes or no because I don't know any other reason that might be circulating around in your movement system that gave you a sore knee or knees, foot pain, plantar fasciitis, one foot or both foot, but one might be worse than the other, that gave you a Morton's neuroma. It is because there's always context of n equals 1. That said, there is a principle that we can apply here. The soles of the feet are full of information highways back to the brain so that the brain knows where the ground is and where the feet are. And we can use this to improve awareness of where the ground is, whole body global timing, because the timing mechanism within the brain uses the visual processing, the vestibular processing, and the proprioceptive processing. By proprioceptive processing, I don't mean proprioception, kind of the body's awareness of itself in motion. What I mean by that is the proprioceptive system, which uses the spindle cell information from the muscles, the Golgi tendon organ information from the tendons, and the exquisite sensitivity of the joint capsules to give force, vector, speed changes at proprioceptive information level. And you've got 33 joints in each foot, and you've got 4 layers of muscle underneath the bones of each foot. So you've got all of that joint capsule information, and you've got all of that muscle tendon information of the proprioception into the signal box. We're talking about feet, so we have feet up on Doris. And so you are improving information to the brain via the timing mechanism, which uses the information. And of course, there's proprioception coming from other muscles too, but you've got a lot going on down there. A quarter of the bones in the body are in your feet. All of those muscles that go from the foot into the calf. So you're not just talking to the skin of the soles of the feet, you're talking to the proprioceptive system. And therefore, you're talking to the cerebellum, the signal box. The movement of the rubbing affects, if you're standing, it affects all the way up to the hip. To a degree, if you're seated, it affects all the way up to the hip. So many people have messaged to say that their knee pain has gone. And it may not be simply directly from the information coming in through the sole of the feet. but it could so easily be the action of standing on one leg and rubbing the other foot, and turning and twisting it, which spoke to the hip joint as well as the ankle joint and the feet joints, and the knee became happier in between as a result. So often it's not the act, it's not just the simple, what are you doing? You're feeling it in the soles of your feet. It is also the action of the movements of the body to do that action. Even if you're doing it standing, even balancing on the stance leg to scrub the other side would have a degree of balance, coordination, timing, cerebellum work, just neatly wrapped up within it. You're welcome, just as an indirect outcome. So if you've had any fracture that has precluded foot contact with the ground, so anything from the hip down, I would say, then getting information in, seated information in through the sole of the skin, seated foot wiping, just as I demoed, it seems to me would probably be useful. Ankle sprains for sure, because the proprioception, the body's awareness with all of that swelling and inflammation, becomes reduced. So you are improving the information highway coming through. Sore knees, we've just gone through, plantar fasciitis. So there's lots of rolling of balls through the fascia, the soft tissue on the sole of the foot, which is muscle spindle cell inflammation, Golgi tendon organ inflammation. If there's enough movement, you're talking to the joint capsules. So for sure, that will help for many. Will it be the full answer? I don't know. But always these things are worth giving it a try, isn't it? The Morton's neuroma, that tends to be on one side versus the other. It tends to be from there's not enough space, and the brain creates like a cyst wall, almost as it's an internal version of a corn or a callus on your skin. There is attrition there. A bit like a bone spur. There's attrition there. So the brain sends resources and makes something to protect itself, because it recognizes that there is some damage going on, and it's chronic enough for it to feel as if it needs to shore up its defenses. So with a Morton's neuroma, you think, well, okay, why does your system need to create extra resources there in that foot? It tends to be the one doing the most work. And what is nice about the foot wiping is the spreading of the toes and the metatarsal heads, the long foot bones leading to the toes. And you see these big red blobs. What I'll see on Doris is, with the Morton's neuroma, they're just making a beeline for the big red dot, generally speaking, in the middle of the foot. And over and over and over again, the system moves through the foot in exactly the same way to the exact same spot as the Morton's neuroma. So the Morton's neuroma is the hot spot of the foot. So solving the full solution can't be foot wiping, because the body above is heading in that direction every single footfall. So a bit more investigation needs to go on to figure out why. Why is that happening? And in the meantime, spreading the long foot bones leading to the toes, spreading the toes, just like we did on the edge of the mat to spread grandma's toes, and to spread, because that's where the lymph the lymph collectors are, between the toes. And so by spreading the toes with an ankle sprain, you get more lymph movement. With a swollen foot for grandma, we had more movement because we were spreading the toes and we were seated. So we were doing it according to the ability of that person's body to move. Peripheral neuropathy, which is the epitome of a lack of information coming through from the peripherals to the brain. And there can be many reasons for peripheral neuropathy. And people get rightly concerned about, they can't feel anything. The beauty of foot wiping is, maybe if you fired up lots of information coming through, you might be able to make a change, maybe a 1% change, maybe a 25% change, because you can do no harm. It's probably worth a go. And as I said, there's many reasons for peripheral neuropathy, but maybe the peripheral neuropathy, which I have seen many times, is from being incapacitated enough to have reduced mobility. And the reduced mobility creates the peripheral swelling, which reduces the information coming through from the swollen foot or feet. So giving information, not just sitting there hoping that it might improve, but giving lots of information with as much squish through the 4 layers of muscle as possible, with as much movement through the joints as is feasible, it's probably worth trying, because you've got complete control of the situation, whether you do it seated or standing, and whether or not there's any pain present. You have control. So you can and you can hang on to things. If you get to do this standing up, you can hold on to something whilst you're foot wiping as if you have shoes on. There's nothing to make you do it freestanding. And then the final one, which was Parkinson's, which I have least exposure to. Again, I don't know the etiology of Parkinson's, or all of the factors surrounding why somebody might be struggling with this condition. And we can recognize it with slightly jerky movements in part. So it's possible that movements might smooth out because you're talking to the cerebellum, not because specifically you're foot wiping. Again, it's this indirect route. You're talking to the cerebellum, which is the signal box for timing in the brain. It creates fluidity of movement and thought, which is why people talk about using cerebellar activities to improve cognitive function and to improve timing of movement. It's the same thing. So if you are working through the soles of the feet, you have immense amount of proprioceptive system input into the cerebellums, which is fluidity of movement, timing. And maybe that might have the influence, a positive influence on the symptoms of Parkinson's. It would be lovely to have a cohort of people just trying it out and seeing what happens. Until we try these things, we don't know. The reason I present the foot wiping to you is because I have measured hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and without doubt thousands of feet with befores and afters, with just in clinic 10 minutes of foot wiping. Okay, what have we got? Okay, now continue that at home, just 2 minutes twice a day, and great things seem to happen consistently. So I think I'd like to wrap it up by saying, give it a go and let me know.